This is Christopher Sharp, co-director and a producer on the film Bobi Wine, The People's President.
This is Moses Bwayo, co-director and one of the cinematographers. And you're listening to, and you're watching the Cinematography Podcast.
The following podcast contains explicit language. You're listening to the Cinematography Podcast presented by Hot Rod Cameras, a program about the art, craft, and philosophy of the moving image and the people who make it happen. Coming to you from the world headquarters of Hot Rod Cameras in Hollywood, California, are your hosts, Ben Rock and Ilya Friedman.
Hey everybody, we have a bonus episode and it honestly couldn't possibly be more timely. I'm here with our producer Alana Cody.
Hi.
And we are covering a documentary. Tell us about the documentary, Alana.
The documentary is called Bobi Wine, The People's President, and it's about Bobi Wine is a performer. He's a singer, songwriter, and member of parliament in Uganda. And the documentary followed him for 5 years as he ran for president in Uganda, which is currently ruled by an authoritarian regime under Museveni is the name of the current president, who's been in power now for 38 years.
Oof.
So we got to speak with the filmmakers, Moses Bwayo and Christoper Sharp. It was just extremely powerful, moving documentary.
Yeah,
and
I wasn't expecting it. You had told me that it was like really hard hitting, and I watched it right before the interview, actually, and I was not expecting this movie to literally reduce me to tears. And it had shades of a documentary that came out a few years ago called Navalny. That's also a pretty amazing documentary. And today, as we're recording this, we found out Navalny himself died in a Russian prison. Navalny, who was like the only credible candidate to run against Vladimir Putin in many years, and Putin has poisoned him, imprisoned him, and I feel like Bobi Wine is in the middle of that right now, still in the middle of that.
Yeah. So the documentary of Bobi Wine, The People's President, is pretty similar in how Bobi Wine is challenging the current regime, and he ran against Museveni, and he was there was extreme threat to his life. And the filmmaker Moses Bwayo, who followed him and captured almost everything that you see in the documentary, his life was also threatened. So Bobi Wine, The People's President is nominated for an Oscar for Best Documentary Feature, and you can see it now on National Geographic if you have Disney Plus, and you can also see it on YouTube. The filmmakers felt that it was really important for everyone, especially in Uganda, to be able to see this documentary. Just, be prepared. It's very heavy, and there's a lot of peril, but it's worth watching.
Definitely worth watching.
Real bloodshed happens in this film.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot. Absolutely. But check out our interview, and these two guys are heroes. They're real heroes.
Yes.
Here we go.
The Cinematography Podcast interview.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, guys. I have to tell you, I think Ilya was supposed to conduct the interview, and I found out yesterday that it was going to be me, and I hadn't seen your film yet. And I watched it this morning, and I think I just got the tears off my face about 10 minutes ago. I sat there and watched it, and I was just astonished. It's an astonishing piece of work. And whenever you hear something is Academy nominated, there's a certain weight on it. But holy crap, I almost don't even know where to start. There are documentaries like The Fog of War, where it's a retrospective thing and you're talking to somebody. This is a film where you are with somebody essentially, not quite a war zone, but kind of like a lot like a war zone for a long time. How did you even start? How did you start, and what did you think you were making when you started? Because you couldn't have imagined where it was going to go. I couldn't imagine where it was going to go when I started watching it.
No, you're completely right. We had no idea where it was going to grow. So I grew up in Uganda, and my father grew up in Uganda. So I sort of had a connection there. And I knew about Bobi Wine's music, and I knew about the political situation. I knew that President Museveni had been in power for 34 years at the time. And I actually met Bobby and Barbie in Europe, and sort of sat down with them, and I had this, Ugandan connection, and I started talking to them. And Bobby just explained, he'd grown up in the ghetto, as you see in the film. His parents had died when he was pretty young. He'd pulled himself out of that situation by his musical talent. He'd become this big pop star, and he'd put himself into university. And at university, he meets Barbie. When I met him, he'd just run to be an independent member of parliament. And he was sort of transitioning from being this solely musician into an activist and a politician. And when he told me what he was about to sacrifice, he said, I'm in this great situation and I know I'm going to lose everything. I know I'm going to put everything at risk, and I kind of feel I need to do it and I have a responsibility to do it. It seemed pretty obvious that, we needed to stick with him and see where it went. I mean, going back to your point about you don't know where it's going to go. There was many times when we thought Bobby was killed. We'd lost.
Watching it, I felt like, it was a similar feeling to Navalny, the documentary that came out last year. Honestly, the corruption and depravity of the people that Bobi Wine is up against is incomprehensible.
No, shocking. It's really shocking.
There's like no bottom to what these people will do. And so I was honestly, you did a great job of making me like him, like his music, want him to succeed. And then it was like one heartbreak after another. But I just felt like I was in the room with him the whole time.
I mean, the other point, and then I'll hand over to Moses, who was often on the front line. The other point was, we filmed for 5-6 years. And so it's a chunk of his life. Yeah. But the reality is it's still going on. Yeah. So, we could be filming now and his life would still every day, just 2 weeks ago, he was locked up in his house and he couldn't get out. Then the day the Oscar nomination came out, they let him out like an hour later because they obviously realized there was going to be attention. But this is a living story. And it's what makes the film so important. It actually is having a massive impact on the Ugandan people and on the regime. But Moses, please come in and just talk about, Moses really, really.
Yeah, Moses, tell us a little bit about how you came to the story and your background.
Yeah, I was introduced to Chris through a friend, and, Chris shared the story, and I felt like, we have to do this. At the time, Bobby had just gotten into parliament, and he was really, asking all the Ugandan population to get involved. And, he was saying that don't just speak about politics, but participate, and we were really inspired by his message. And as Christoper said, Bobby had literally pulled himself out of the ghetto to become a successful musician and, build a life for himself. So we all admired his life and his music, and so this message of hope was really resonating with the whole population. So anyway, at that point, I quickly agreed to join the project, and it's been a wonderful journey. It was a blessing to be able to be in those spaces to capture this story. Just to see this mass movement around the country, a big rise up, and start demanding for our own rights in Uganda. It's impactful. Yeah.
Are the Ugandan people going to be able to see this film? Is there any way they can see it?
Yeah, I mean, amazingly, the film was acquired by Nat Geo, and one of the many great things they did is they put it on YouTube free.
Oh, great.
So the people of Uganda can watch it, which has been amazing. And then, it's very difficult. The regime there would obviously like the film not to be shown, but it's out and people are watching it. And, there's a few things Bobby has done. One of them is he's inspired a continent. It's not just Uganda. This story has resonated throughout the continent. All the people who are living under dictatorships, suddenly they feel there's hope. Bobby is showing them a way forward. And then the other thing we always wanted the film to do is just to show the West what's going on there. And, Museveni sets himself up as a democracy, which is just ludicrous.
Yeah.
We wanted people to understand this is not a democracy. And there is this chap there called Bobi Wine, who he shares our values. He's non-violent. It'd be very easy. Everyone's super down and depressed. It'd be very easy to whip them all up into a frenzy to start fighting. but that's not, he knows that's not right. So, he's really stuck with the democratic thing, and we need to support him because he's really one of us.
Mm-hmm. So, Moses, when you first got involved, did you sort of have a general idea of the kind of film that you wanted to make, or was it just, it seems very verite, like you were just going to be following Bobby around just to see what happened. Can you tell me a little bit about your process?
Yeah, so we, wanted to tell a story of this young, talented musician, comes out of the ghetto, inspires a nation, that kind of story. And he's rise into politics and the, coalitions he was building in parliament and the bills he was trying to bring, that kind of story. But, as we kept filming, it was very dangerous for him, and there was a few attempted assassinations on him. So more and more, we realized the camera was actually a protection, to him, his family, those close to him, the movement. So we just kept on going and going. And then he announced he wanted to remove Museveni, the dictatorship, from power. President Museveni has been in power for 38 years now.
Oof.
Since the Ronald Reagan administration in the US, wow. Uganda has had the same exact president until today. So, it's a repressive regime, it's a military regime, it's and he rules with a heavy hand. So when Bobby made that announcement, there was just, chaos, and there was, they were just coming at him with every level of state apparatus. He has maybe 20 cases right now in courts all over the country in different districts, that he has to answer to. Of course, these are all trumped up charges, right? Just, brought up to keep him from having a normal life, right? So, we knew that the closer we stuck with them, with him and his wife and people close to him, it would bring some level of protection. And indeed, even like the days I spent under house arrest with Bobby and Barbie, what worried us was that the military and police would break into the house any moment. But I think what stopped them is when they knew that there was a cameraman in that house, it probably stopped them from breaking into the house.
I still would have been terrified, though. Like, I mean, my hat's off to you for staying there, because it's like they could come in and they could seize your camera and do whatever they wanted to do. And I was waiting for that. Like, because like, and it's early in your film, there's that scene where they're talking to that guy who's like the mayor of this one area. And
they just
the police, they just come up and they start punching him in the stomach and throw him in a truck. And I spent the rest of the movie wondering what happened to that guy. Like,
I know.
And that was happening left and right. It was the violence and the cruelty is so overt that, even when they were like just surrounding his complex, I was like, are they going to come in? Like, what horrible thing is going to happen next?
Yeah.
And what's even stopping that?
It was a fear that we also had while in the house. We really knew they would break in any moment. So, the conventional ways of working in Uganda do not work. So like I had to find ways of hiding footage in the house, right? So hide it in different places.
Can you tell us, or is that tradecraft that we don't want to let out?
Of course we can. We could talk about it, but sometimes I just hid it in like obvious places, like under a sink in the living room. No one will be checking under a sink in the living room, the most obvious place. In a couch somewhere. So things like that. So I knew if they broke into the house, they're going to comb it, left, right, and center, and try to find the footage. But Ben, we risked our lives to make this film, to bring it to the audience.
Yes.
I was locked up. I was arrested a few times. I was locked up in jail. I was interrogated, and I was shot in the face close to the election. Right here. I don't know if you can see that.
You were shot in the face.
Yes, at close range. This military man saw me, recognized me, and he pointed his gun, cocked it, and looked at me in the face. And it was not the first time a gun was pointed in my face, but it's the first time someone actually shot.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but and as we speak, of course, the situation had become very violent, and there were two attempted kidnaps on my wife. So Christoper and I and John, our producer, we decided before we released the film, me and my wife had to flee. So now we are in the U.S. seeking political asylum. Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, like, how do you stay engaged in making a film when you feel like it's a threat to your life or a threat to your family? I mean, like, after you're shot in the face, I mean, like, there are going to be a lot of people who go up at the Oscars and talk about how brave so-and-so was, how brave Emma Stone was for taking her role in Poor Things. And it's like, I get it in the sweep of her career, but like what you're doing is putting yourself in actual harm's way to get a story out that really I do feel like the world needs to see.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Honestly, this film has also been a deep labor of love, and we're fortunate to have been present in that space to tell that story. Of course, this question came up so many times, but I made a personal decision to carry on with the task, to finish this story. It's a story of our nation. It's a story of a whole country, under a relentless military dictatorship. So it was a task, really. It was, I would say I was drunk with the story, like I just couldn't stop. So we had to finish the task and get it out to the world.
I mean, would you say that like your passion for it mirrored Bobi Wine's? Because I feel like you describing what you're going through feels a little bit like while I'm watching it and I'm like, why am I getting so emotional about, I watch tons of movies and it's hard to get super wrapped up and emotional, even documentaries. And it's like, because Bobi Wine is someone who's coming up against some of the most oppressive dictatorship and keeps the smile on his face, even if in private you see his doubts and you feel like you really know him, but then he goes and writes a song about freedom
to do it, yes,
and doesn't give up, and that's what you were doing.
Yeah, I mean, he inspired me. He still does. He's the bravest man I know. I mean, I fled for my life. The guy still goes back to Uganda, right?
Yeah.
There's one time he went in October last year. And he was, picked up off of an aircraft, dragged on the tarmac, bundled in a van, driven to a military detention center. A friend filmed this ordeal, and that video that was filmed was put on social media. That's what got like media organizations writing stories, Al Jazeera, CNN, BBC, and then the state released him because of the noise that was happening, right? This is a current story, like Christoper said. This story is still happening today. Yeah. It's urgent, but now, I mean, we Christoper and I, we've been thinking maybe we should find a way to start filming again because the situation has not improved, right?
Right.
And we have this incredible access, we have this story still happening right now. And for some reason, the camera had become like a protection to them. And now we feel like, oh my God, we're indebted to this struggle. We need to do something. So, yeah.
I mean, just to give you some context of how it's still going on, I was with Barbie in London, and Bobi was, this was like a few weeks ago, and Bobi was in Uganda, and he was out, meeting people, thousands of crowds, and suddenly Barbie's phone goes and it's a text. And I'm not going to say which embassy it was from, but it was from a European embassy in Kampala saying there's a plan to assassinate your husband by the regime today, and you need to get him out of there. And Bobi was standing on a car, with a megaphone talking to huge crowds, and managed to get hold of someone. Bobi didn't want to get off the car. He was like, no, I'm fine. It was like, got him in the car and bundled him away. And someone took a picture of a guy moving through the crowd with a pistol stuffed down the back of his pants, obviously an operative in a sort of tight T-shirt. And so it's ongoing. This guy's life is constantly threatened. And you just feel at the level of bravery. And he's got so much to lose, and yet he has this sort of sense that he needs to try and liberate the people, because Uganda is a desperately poor country for the majority of people. There's an elite who stub their toe and they get on a private jet and go somewhere else. but most people have no healthcare, no education. And Bobby's coming from that. So he sees clearly what these people have suffered, and he feels a responsibility to try and liberate them.
I feel like it almost feels trivial to talk about this, but we are the Cinematography Podcast. So I'd like to talk about the techniques you used to film it, the cameras. I'm assuming that you had to travel light. It had to be something that was ready for run and gun. But the images are so beautiful and arresting. How did you go into that world knowing you could get something that you could use in your film?
Yeah, we knew it was going to need run and gun setup, and we started off with the Sony FS7, and it was a very heavy camera, but then we had the small S7 IIIs.
Those are great.
That capture great images, really wonderful, and also really good in low light, and in most cases I just had like a monopod, so not a tripod, but like just a simple, monopod to stabilize things if I needed to. But most times it was really handheld, really verite, because all the situations, as you see, you're going from crowds, you're going into a car, traveling, and then off a car, you're on a motorcycle.
Yeah. You can't have a crew. Like, did you even have sound?
No, we didn't.
Was it all you?
No, it was mainly sound was going into camera, and those small cameras, they have like this external unit that you attach on them, and and it will give you two XLRs in, and so we would have like a shotgun microphone, and then a lav mic on Bobby or Barbie all the time. We went through a few microphones with Bobby. Every time they arrested him, they would take the microphone packs, and the cameras were broken a couple of times, not because I didn't take good care of them.
Yeah, I was wondering, did they take the camera from you and break it, or did they do anything like that? Did that happen a few times, or? Oh,
we had to fix a few cameras. I had to send them over to the UK a few times, and some cameras, just broken in the process of the chaos and just those environments, and they did. When I was arrested, they took away a bunch of equipment, lenses, and and the lenses were, I think, one of the very good things we decided to invest in. We got some nice Sony G Master lenses. They're a very great brand, and these beautiful images and really good in low light as well, and yeah.
Oh man, that just sounds crazy. Because I mean, like, there's some scenes, especially like inside his compound or the interview stuff that you did, that just looks primetime, beautiful, well composed. I love it's like the kind of haunting stuff inside their compound where the light's kind of coming in through the curtains, and it's very kind of volumetric lighting, and it feels like what I guess it probably was, which is like they feel down and kind of not defeated, but like, they're on their heels. And it was kind of a darkish, like if I was making the movie version, the Hollywood movie, I might light it just like that. But then there's
all natural light,
Yeah.
Again, it was just run and gun. So we just had to use the light that was there.
Yeah.
Whatever is within the room, whatever is coming from the windows or the lights.
Well, even the part, to me, I remember the part where Barbie's doing the dishes. And she's
that morning,
but it's so tense,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great shot though too. It's like, well, I guess she might as well do the dishes.
I know. Yeah, I mean, we so that scene, Christoper and I, we were still wondering, how are we going to finish this film? Chris, you remember this?
I remember it well. Yeah.
Yeah, like
we
how
could have
we
carried on filming forever. We had to put an end to it, so it was just, and also because Bobby's such an optimistic person, we didn't want. Well, Bobby wouldn't have wanted the film to end on a sort of total low, even though it's not a great situation. So it was kind of was trying to find a way of knowing that he'd been robbed of the election, he'd actually won it, but giving back some hope again, and we carry on. So
yeah.
I know, it was nice seeing them reunite with their children.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was beautiful as well. was really wonderful. I mean, the kids are just so intelligent and smart and wonderful, and they helped make the film quite light.
I mean, the resilience of those kids is incredible and speaks, wonders to the whole family because, like there's that scene where one of his kids is like writing a letter to him while he's a political prisoner, holding themselves together,
Yeah, one of the cinematographers shot that, Sam Benstead, incredible cinematographer. Yeah, he shot that scene, with the letters, yeah.
I mean, it's quite interesting. Bobby and Barbie were saying the other day that they made a decision quite early on to tell the children exactly what was going on because they would go to school and the other school kids go, "Oh, your father's in prison. He's a criminal." And so they said it was really important for the children to understand what they were trying to achieve, even though, when we started, they were quite small. So it's it shows you the sort of solidarity of the family and also the intelligence of the parents to just realize that you have to protect the children, but the way you protect them is with information. And, you say to them, children are going to say this at school, but that's what they understand, but it's not actually the truth, when they did an amazing job because today, the children are incredible. And one of them's studying the States, but the rest of them are back in Uganda and they are, they're stable, beautiful, wonderful human beings. So yeah, they've done a great job.
Wow. Moses, can you tell us a little bit about your background? It sounds like you had an interesting story yourself of how you came to being a filmmaker.
Yeah, so I did mass communication because I had wanted to study film or photography, but there was no school in Uganda to give me that background. So there was a school in South Africa, but they were very expensive. So I found a university that had a program where you would do mass communication and then specialize in like your third year in TV and film production. So that's what I did as an undergrad and then went on to do a postgrad in film and TV production that had been set up by this wonderful German documentarian. I mean, it was a very intense study program, film history, film analysis, the new Hollywood cinema, the auteurs, and, so we studied that whole stuff. And then I found this workshop program called Maisha Film Lab that is run by Miranaya. And that's how it's very tech heavy. And, it's like it's a month of intense, like technical training. But then at the end of the month, in the last week, you make a film and they divide you in groups of a director, assistant director, editor, and then sound recordist. But after the 1 month, you make a film and you screen the film, and Mira would come to those screenings. So I did a few of them. So the final one, Mira came to the screening, and I was one of the people who were picked up to then work on one of her films, A Fork, a Knife, and a Spoon. It was a short film about Nelson Mandela's quote that goes, "What doesn't break you makes you," something like that. And after that, I was then picked up again to carry on and work on Queen of Katwe, which was about 2 years of pre-production, production, and post-production. And I was part of the film through the whole process, coming to New York for the first time in 2016 to mix the film at Soundtracks New York.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I recorded the ADRs in the film and mixed them at Soundtracks.
Awesome.
So it was a great experience. And I went back to Uganda. I started a production company called Jaja Productions with fellow Maisha alumni. And we were making films. But I wanted to grow my cinematography career. And so I was shooting for BBC and Vice on the side. And that's around the time when I met Christoper and we made Bobi Wine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow, that's an incredible story.
Christoper, what was your background? How did you get into filmmaking?
I used to be an editor.
Oh, okay.
Back in the day. So yeah, and I did a few sort of documentaries, and I also did lots of TV commercials and music videos, and spent quite a lot of time in the Middle East doing editing and production and stuff. And then I moved away and did something else. And then I met Bobby and Barbie. And then I was like, wow, yeah, here we go.
I know, they're so charismatic.
Yeah.
They really are.
I mean, the big thing for us was we spent 2 years in the edit.
Yes, I was going to ask about that.
I imagine there must be miles of footage plus news footage.
Over 2 years?
Well, it was a year of watching material.
Yeah.
I bet.
And we logged absolutely.
Logging and, oh my God.
And then 2 years, and we had 4,000 hours of footage. So it would stuff we had, a couple of different cinematographers on the project, and then Moses, and then we got tons of archive, and we got tons of news footage, and then we gave Bobby and Barbie iPhone just to record stuff at home. But it was just this massive amount of material, and often Moses would sort of go with Bobby, on a 3-hour car ride. And, film a lot of the way, and then film the funeral, and then film coming back. And there was this great sense that we needed to watch everything, because you just, you don't know. And then also you never know when something's going to happen.
Right.
Innocuous situation, you think nothing's going to happen. Suddenly there's shooting, and really important to film everything, and then try and craft it into a story, of under 2 hours, which was it could easily have been a lot longer, but
could have been a series.
It could have been a series. Yeah, it could have been a series. Yeah.
So my takeaway for me personally was a little bit too of like, being in America and, in your comfortable living room, and you're like, oh yeah, that's far away. That could never happen here. But
not my feeling at all.
Not anymore. No, but that's how it used to be, right? But that's definitely not how I feel anymore. And that was what really hit me. That's what made it feel so visceral to me, is that democracy is so fragile, and it's just
around the whole world. I mean,
it is. Yes, around the whole world.
And I think it's such a timely story for the moment, we're all going on here, but it's a timely story all over the world. And that's, so it's a warning, because Uganda had a proper constitution. They had term limits. They had age limits, so you couldn't be president if you were over 75. You could only do 2 5-year terms. And, they had institutions like they had the judiciary and all these things which were external, which weren't connected with government, which were meant to protect people. And they got rid of them all. So, it is a warning. And what you have to do is you have to protect them right from the beginning, because once they start disappearing, you're really in trouble, and you need a heroic character to come along and try and save the day, like Bobby.
So what does the future of Uganda look like? What do we do?
Yeah, what can we do?
Yeah.
Really?
The future of Uganda, well, to start with, we hope that we will not be ignored. We hope that this story will not be ignored. The people of Uganda for the last 38 years have lived under the Museveni dictatorship. And right now, a character like Bobi Wine, who believes in democracy, non-violence, has come up to push for change. And we hope that this will not be ignored. But also, we hope that, this story will inspire, other countries that are living under dictatorships like the one in Uganda, that it will help them, it will re-energize them, it will strengthen them and inspire them.
Well, I can't recommend highly enough that people seek this out. And obviously, like you said, it's on YouTube. If you have Disney Plus, you can watch it on the National Geographic, which is how I watched it. But like when I was going to send out some stuff on social media about it, and I realized the whole movie was there. And I'm glad you mentioned that's tactical, that it's out there so that nowhere in the world can stop people from seeing it. And I hope a lot of our listeners go check it out. I think it's one of the most urgent movies I've seen in a long time. Like, I feel like we should see it right now.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, nicely done, you guys. It's very impactful.
Yeah. I hope the next time I see you is accepting the award.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
This has been the Cinematography Podcast, presented by Hot Rod Cameras. Find your next camera, lens, or accessory on the web at hotrodcameras.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on iTunes and connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.